In the burning plains of South India stands a fortress so strong that the British, centuries later, would call it the Troy of the East. For 7 long years, the most powerful emperor in India, a man who commanded one of the world's largest armies, failed to capture it. This is the story of Gingee Fort and how it became the 7-year nightmare of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. To understand this epic struggle, you first have to understand the fort itself. Located strategically between modern-day Bengaluru and Puducherry, Gingee wasn't just a military outpost. It was a fortress city, a sprawling complex built across 3 massive granite hills, Rajagiri, Krishnagiri, and Chandrayandurg. Imagine trying to attack this place. Each hill was its own citadel. You're faced with sheer, unscalable granite cliffs. If you somehow find a path, you're met with 80-foot-high defensive walls. The paths are deliberately narrow, designed to force entire armies into single file, creating deadly choke points where defenders could rain down arrows and rocks. Even if you managed to break through one layer of defense, you hadn't won. The fort was a tiered system. Conquering the lower levels meant nothing if the defenders simply retreated to the higher citadels. And inside? Intricate rock-cut water reservoirs that harvested every drop of monsoon rain. Gingee was built for one thing above all else: endurance. It wasn't designed to just fight a battle, it was designed to outlast an empire. Now let's meet our villain. By the late 1600s, Emperor Aurangzeb was at the zenith of his power. His Mughal Empire stretched across nearly the entire Indian subcontinent, from Afghanistan to Bengal. He was a master strategist, a ruthless commander, and he believed his destiny was to bring all of India under his single, unified rule. But one region stubbornly refused to submit: the Deccan. The Marathas, a fierce warrior community from the Western Ghats, were his greatest obstacle. After capturing and executing the Maratha king, Sambhaji Maharaja, Aurangzeb was convinced their resistance would finally collapse. He believed he had cut the head off the snake. But he was wrong. The resistance didn't die, it transformed. It became decentralized, a guerrilla war fought across thousands of square kilometers. And this is where our hero enters the stage. Rajaram Maharaja, the younger son of the legendary Shivaji Maharaja, found himself the new leader of the Maratha cause. With the Mughal armies closing in on his heartland in Maharashtra, he knew that staying put meant certain death or capture, a place where he could regroup and lead the fight. So, he made a daring decision. He didn't run north, deeper into Mughal territory. He ran south. Hundreds and hundreds of miles away through hostile lands, he and his followers made a perilous journey to Gingee Fort. This wasn't a retreat. It was a brilliant strategic repositioning. From the near impenetrable safety of Gingee, Rajaram established a new Maratha capital in exile. From this southern command center, orders were dispatched to his commanders spread across the Deccan. Raids on Mughal territories intensified. Crucially, Maratha forces began a relentless campaign of attacking the empire's long, vulnerable supply lines. The Mughal army found itself fighting a ghost, a phantom enemy that was everywhere and nowhere at once. The war was no longer about conquering forts, it was about survival. Aurangzeb, sitting in his grand court, was furious. He could not allow this southern symbol of defiance to stand. The very existence of a Maratha king operating freely from Gingee was an insult to his imperial authority. So, he ordered what he thought would be a swift, crushing response. With a massive army to lay siege to Gingee and capture Rajaram, the Mughals surrounded the 3 hills, cutting off all entry and exit. They believed it was only a matter of weeks, maybe months, before the fort surrendered. They were wrong. So why did it take so long? The answer lies in the brilliant design of the fort and the equally brilliant strategy of the Marathas. Inside Gingee, the defenders were well prepared. As we mentioned, the fort's massive granaries and water systems meant they could withstand a long siege without starving or running out of water. Every time the Mughals launched a major assault on one of the hills, the defenders would use the terrain to their advantage, inflict heavy casualties, and then simply retreat to a higher, more defensible position. Meanwhile, outside the fort, the real war was being waged. Legendary for their lightning-fast cavalry raids, tormented the Mughal siege army. The Mughal army was effectively trapped. They were besieging a fort, but they themselves were being besieged by the entire Deccan. Think about the logistical nightmare for the Mughals. Every bag of grain, every arrow, every cannonball had to travel thousands of kilometers from North India through territories swarming with hostile Maratha bands. Then came the monsoons, turning the plains around Gingee into a sea of mud, crippling the movement of their heavy cavalry and artillery. Disease, like cholera and dysentery, swept through the Mughal camps, killing thousands of soldiers. The morale of the Mughal army plummeted. They were far from home, fighting an invisible enemy and dying for a pile of rocks. And then, in a final, audacious move, the ultimate prize slipped through their fingers. After years of being trapped inside, Rajaram Maharaja, the very man they were there to capture, executed a daring escape from Gingee. He slipped through the Mughal cordon and made his way back to Maharashtra to continue leading the war from his homeland. The king was gone, but the rebellion was stronger than ever. Finally, in early 1698, after 7 years of relentless pressure and a final, determined assault, the fort of Gingee fell. Aurangzeb had finally conquered the Troy of the East, but it was a hollow victory. In fact, it was a catastrophic strategic failure. Rajaram was free, and the conflict continued to rage across the Deccan. Aurangzeb, obsessed with crushing the Marathas, would spend the final decades of his life and his reign bogged down in the south. The 7-year siege of Gingee was a critical turning point. It drained the Mughal treasury of immense wealth. It exhausted the empire's finest armies. It stretched the administrative capacity of the empire to its breaking point. So the true legacy of Gingee is not that it fell, it's that it held on for so long. Those 7 years were not just a military delay. They were a fatal wound to the Mughal Empire. It was 7 years of imperial focus, manpower, and wealth poured into taking a single fortress. It was 7 years of psychological warfare that proved the emperor was not invincible. A single fort, through its clever design and the tenacity of its defenders, forced the most powerful empire in India into a state of strategic exhaustion. Stone defeated scale. Distance defeated dominance. And in that 7-year delay, the seeds of the Mughal Empire's future collapse were sown. The war in the Deccan would bleed the empire dry, and it would never fully recover. The story of Gingee is a powerful reminder that, in history, sometimes the greatest victories are not won by conquering, but by enduring. Thanks for watching. If you found this story of resilience and strategy fascinating, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more hidden histories. See you next time.